Hello and welcome. I'm Lorianne Lumbie with Authentic Freedom Academy, and this is our weekly Friday service. And the theme of today's gathering is returning to the mother's womb. And so, as we begin, I invite you to close your eyes and to bring your awareness into the center of your own womb. The energy center located between the navel and the base of our spine, the sacral chakra. On a personal level, this is our center for creativity and co-creation, and also procreation. It is the center out of which we came into this world through our own mothers. And it is the center through which we continue to birth ourselves into this life experience. So I invite you to hold your energy in the center of that sacred sacral chakra. If you're in a position to do so, I invite you to lay your hands on your lower abdomen, giving honor attention, recognition, and celebration to that life force center that is within you. Acknowledging the divine woman that you are. Recognizing the goddess that dwells within you and seeks to be known in the world through you. Allowing yourself to feel safe and anchored, surrounded, protected, and embraced and held in that sacred center within your own being, where you and the Divine Mother are one. And I invite us all to rest in silence in the center of that divine womb that is within us. That divine womb from which we are continuing to be born and reborn in this life experience. And now I invite you to take 3 deep cleansing breaths. And with each cycle of breathing, to give honor and thanks once again to the womb of the Divine Mother that is within you and that is you. So I begin our message today. First of all, thank you to those who are here live, and thank you to those who will view this recorded content later. And I know that there is one person who is trying to get into our gathering that for some reason it's not working out. So I'm kind of keeping my eyes in 2 different places here. So the message today that came through, the theme again is returning to the mother's womb. And I want to preface the message by acknowledging my own humanness and recognizing that some of what came through me today might just be for me, might also be a projection of my own unhealed garbage. So I invite you to listen to this message through the ears of discernment and take what resonates with you and disregard the rest. Hopefully there's something here of value for everybody that is in this circle today. And I want to thank Debbie Summerholder, who is my yoga teacher, who is here in our circle today because her class this morning very much resonated with what I was feeling myself and helped me to concretize the theme and kind of put it all together. So thank you, Debbie. Okay, so the message. On this 29th day of January, 2021, we find ourselves at an interesting time, a time that feels like a critical junction between one way of being and another. The way of being that has often been defined by or experienced as sacrifice. Specifically, we have sacrificed ourselves for the sake of a broken and wounded world. In being or participating in the sacrifice, we have been carrying and feeling the pain of an unsustainable world. A world that I have described as a world that is dying, and a world that has been in its death throes, showing us that death throes in violence, hatred, conflict, division. Perhaps partly because of the codependent conditioning of our world, or maybe partly because of an authentic calling. We have believed on some level that it has been our job to fix, heal, repair, help, support, transform that unsustainable world. And I will be the first, but probably not the last, to admit that doing this work has been exhausting. So many of us are feeling depleted, worn out, flayed, frayed, not afraid, frayed. And for what? The pessimistic, perhaps nihilistic part of who I am, or who I can be, asks that question. For what? What have we been sacrificing ourselves for? Why have we subjected ourselves to this suffering, this pain? Why have we agreed to carry somebody else's burden? Why have we consented to being the projection of somebody else's unhealed wound? Not even an unhealed wound, an unacknowledged wound. A wound that so many in our world refuse to acknowledge. Why have we consented to carrying that burden? For what? And as we have continued to bring ourselves to this task, as we have lovingly supported and encouraged each other, the very real truth, or at least as I have seen it in many cases, is that the world continues to refuse our gifts. And more importantly, refuses to accept our gift of empowerment. Those in this community are not here to enable. Each and every one of us have accepted the calling to deal with our own shit, to face, identify, heal, transform our own woundedness, our own false perceptions, to confront our ego attachments and let go of those things which are no longer life-giving. And as we have done that work, we have held the intention, the hope, the desire that through our own work, our own example, others will be inspired to do the same. Additionally, we have offered ourselves as sources of support for those who are interested, eager, able, courageous enough to do this work. And I, for one, am profoundly grateful and in awe of all of those who have said yes. All of those as part of this community who have accepted that personal responsibility, who have been willing and eager to do that work, and who have reached out for support when that brick wall shows up, because it does, again and again and again. We do the work, we fall, we get up, we put our hand out and ask a friend to help us get up off the floor or out of our bed or off the heap that we have found ourselves in. We have done this work and we have supported each other in that work. And for that, I am profoundly grateful. And yet the fact remains that we are a minority. As we continue to put our open hands out to the world, they continue to be slapped away. And the difficult thing to acknowledge in the face of that level of resistance and refusal is that while we have found ourselves increasingly empowered and supported and sustained by the deep inner work that we have done, we are not truly empowered when we continue to give our energy away. And this is such a subtle energy giving away of. It's as if we are being invited into a deeper, more subtle awareness of the little tiny ways that we give our energy away, give our power away. Little tiny things that we're probably maybe not even aware of, or maybe the little tiny things are all the ways that our culture has told us we're supposed to share our energy. We are invited to look deep, deep, deep within ourselves. No, let me take that back. We're invited to look outside of ourselves, to look at all the places where we have cast our line, put forth our energy, all the things that occupy our thoughts and our mind and our attention, and being especially fierce in our assessment of how and what we are giving our energy to. What and how we are giving our awareness to. Where are we casting our gaze? And these castings are subtle and insidious. One example is all the ways that we are casting our gaze at the media, all the ways that we are engaging in social media, all the ways in which we are giving attention to a dying world, all the ways in which we are giving our attention to screaming toddlers. One of the images that came up for me this week as I've been processing these deep invitations, there's a beautiful video that's gone around social media, TikTok, probably YouTube. I don't know where it is, where it's hanging out, but I've seen it several times. And it's a 2-year-old child having a complete hissy fit. And the child's patient father just sitting there, holding the child when the child's willing to be held, making sure that the child is safe in its hissy fit, but ultimately not giving the child attention, just letting him flail, not trying to fix it, not trying to heal it, not trying to make it better, just letting the child flail. Eventually, the child becomes worn out, understands that in their flailing, they're not getting any attention. And so they quietly crawl into their father's lap and let him hold him. This is what we are invited to do with the world. This is what we're invited to do with the people around us. Those that have continued to ignore the invitation to do their transformative work, those that refuse to hear the invitation, and those that just flat out don't want to do it. Instead of jumping in and thinking it's our job to fix it or heal it or transform it or make people feel better, instead, our job is to walk away. Take back that cord of our attachment to other people's feelings, emotions, experiences. Taking back the energy that we're giving to something that isn't sustainable or life-giving for ourselves. Drawing back those energies of distraction. And in doing that, we are gathering every single strand of our own energy that we've given to everyone else. And we are calling ourselves home. Our power is not gotten from giving it to others or giving attention to other things. Our power is within. We are being invited to be fiercely defensive around our own energy, time, attention, and gaze. calling back every single strand of what we've given to another and not gotten anything in return. Taking back the strand of apologizing for who we are, taking back the strand of listening to other people's whining and complaining when they are not willing to do their own work, taking back the strand of blame and projection. It is not our fault that other people refuse to do their work. It's not our fault that other people are in pain. We are done sacrificing ourselves for those who are unwilling to take care of themselves, who are unwilling to acknowledge their woundedness and do a goddamn thing about it. We are done being the sacrifice. And it is not our job to carry the world's pain and suffering and guilt and shame. The world needs to be held accountable to their own garbage and start doing their own work. So with that, the one thing I want to acknowledge and to support the amazing people in this circle with is an understanding that as we begin to call back the strands of ourselves, as we bring our energy back home, as we return to our own mother's womb, the womb that dwells within us, that as we do that, there is grief. We are letting go of a way of being, a way of interacting, and truthfully, humbly, a way that we have probably gotten something from. Something not very healthy or life-giving, but something. So it is important and critical that we, number one, be prepared to understand that as we cut these cords, as we draw our energy back, that there will be grief. And the second part of that invitation is to acknowledge that when that grief arises, to hold ourselves gently, to allow ourselves time to wallow in that grieving. Because a big part of that grief is the disappointment and sorrow over that we have been a source of support or tried to be a source of support and help for, who have refused those gifts. It is heartbreaking to watch the people that we love flail in their own misery. But their flailing is not our responsibility, it's not our fault, and it's not ours to fix. So it's appropriate to grieve. It's appropriate to feel sorrow. It's appropriate to need to give ourselves time to move through and process all those phases of grief. Bargaining, denial, anger, depression, sadness. And as we allow ourselves to enter into that diligent practice of calling our energy back and returning to the mother's womb, the mother that we are, the mother that dwells within, we will also begin to notice that something new is trying to come in. A new experience, perhaps a new calling, a new direction. Something new that is no longer based in sacrifice or suffering, but is instead defined by our own inner power. So I want to thank you for having done this excruciating work for yourself. I want to thank you for allowing yourself to call that energy home. And I want to honor you for being courageous enough to be housed in, embodied by, and protective of your own divine energy. And to help support us in that calling, we have the company of Dhumavati. This is the card I chose in preparation for today's gathering. And I will close this message with this reading about Dhumavati. Dhumavati, beloved mother who dwells in the smoke, who presides over the most difficult transitions. She who knows that certain endings are unavoidable. They are necessary predecessors to radical reinvention. Her presence brings the message that though disappointment, defeat, or loss, and the negative repercussions of such experiences may cause suffering for a time, they will not limit our future happiness. They are a means for opening as yet unrecognized pathways for fulfillment. Your trust must be unconditional at this time, and later you shall see that everything has worked out for the absolute best. So for those who are here in this gathering live today, we'll take a few moments in silence to allow that message to settle in, to be received, to begin to take root. And after a few moments of silent reflection, we'll have an opportunity for discussion and sharing. And if you are viewing this video outside the live gathering, I invite you to take time for your own reflection and integration of this message. And if you feel so called, to share your thoughts and reflections in the online portal.